That was my interview with the legendary Phil Ray. This is Ben Lister, episode 8 of the BL and Friends podcast with Phil Ray from TX1RB1 and loads of other stations like Viking and all that. Hope it fills a gap in your time, and here it is.
Hello everyone, welcome to another Chatbox podcast. Welcome to another podcast. It's Ben Lister here. Welcome to how are you doing today? And welcome along to episode 8 of the BL and Friends podcast. Right, let's crack on with this week's guest. As you know, each week I have a guest to talk about their hobby or their career. So let's crack on with this week, or their job. So let's crack on with this week's guest. From the world of broadcasting and radio, and all different radio stations, Viking FM, one of the Key 103, I think, and other stations. And now he's found his home on TX and RB1 on a Saturday night. It's the one and only Phil Ray. Hello, Phil. Welcome along.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, sir?
Yeah, really well. Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, you're the 93rd podcast of the year, I think.
Wow. Okay, that's awesome. Good news.
Yep, brilliant. So, 5 questions about, that's good. Welcome along, that's good. 5 questions about your broadcast career, if that's okay with you.
Brilliant, yes. Happy to answer anything, Ben.
That's good. You ready to rumble in the jungle?
I'm ready.
Let's go for it. Question 1. Where did you start your broadcast career?
Right. Well, I was listening to my local radio station, which was at the time Telford FM. And I was always listening to the breakfast show there every morning. It was Schutze on the Telford FM breakfast show. And I called a guy called Pete Wagstaff, who was in charge of the radio station and radio stations at the time. Kept bothering him, kept pestering to go on air. I did a lot of online shows as well, which was like a volunteer sort of thing, and a lot of school radio. And alongside of that, I was sending in demos all the time with Pete Wagstaff and Telford FM, and eventually managed to get a break on the travel on the breakfast show with Schutze, and, you know, sat in on the shows. It was absolutely awesome. And it all sort of went from there, really. It was certainly an exciting time to be involved in it. And through that, I decided to stay with radio. I just thought, this is exciting. I was listening to the production. I was listening to all the geeky bits, and I was like, yep, this is for me.
Brilliant. That's good. We'll get on to question 2 now. Who are your inspirations in broadcasting who when you were starting out?
So inspirations, I mentioned my local breakfast presenter at the time, Paul Shuttleworth. I mean, he was absolutely brilliant at Telford FM, which later became Signal 107, that station as well, when it was bought by the UTV group. And I stayed with Telford FM, the 7 and the Y for many years. They were amazing stations because they used to really focus on the local elements. And Paul, you know, used to be engaging, used to look up to him because everything was about Telford, everything was about events. And he made it really, you know, exciting to sort of wake up to that breakfast show. So I would certainly say he was a massive influence. But nationally, there were a few presenters I looked up to, like Chris Moyles, for his parodies and just having fun. It was almost like a no filter type style radio. And I always found Scott Mills a brilliant presenter. Scott Mills was witty and made the smallest things a feature. And I think that's a great quality to have. You know, making small things a feature. It could be a really dull day of news, but you could actually find the smallest of thing to make a joke about. And that's something that Scott did really well. So definitely those inspirations for me.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's brilliant. Question. Yeah, and one of my inspirations, as you say, Tony Blackburn as well.
Definitely. Yeah.
And
a
Steph
great guy.
Hurst.
Yeah,
because of what she does with radio.
Yeah, absolutely. And both of those presenters you've mentioned, huge qualities, different in their own ways, but, you know, it's the real sort of connection with the audience that they get. I know that Stephanie gets it, and I know that Tony gets it. You know, they know how to talk to people, and that's what I love. So yeah,
And
totally
also,
agree.
a lot of my guests said Dr. Fox are their inspirations as well. Most of my guests said that
Okay.
Neil.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many great presenters out there, and even the local ones that I just think really know how to connect on a local level. It should never be overlooked. Local radio is quite an art in itself, and making it engaging and also interesting to the listener is very hard sometimes. And, you know, there are some great presenters out there who manage to get the local side, but make it interesting. So it's really good.
Yeah. Do you, yeah, I'd try and, who's your chart show host on TX and RB1?
Chart show host. I'm trying to think who we have. We used to have a retro chart. We don't take any sort of chart show as such, as it were, anymore. So all of the output now on TX1 and RB1 radio is designed to be, you know, the mix of music from the past few decades up until now, and local information and fun in between. So we don't do a chart show.
Was your retro chart show hosted by someone called Dave Mack?
It was hosted by somebody called Warren Miller, who helped set up Tracks FM back in the day as well.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. I'll try and track him down as well.
Great.
Because he's no longer on RB or TX1 anymore.
That's right. Yes, he's gone to focus on other things as well now.
Excellent. Not excellent, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Question 3. What is your favourite part about the job?
So it has to be the listeners and engagement as well. So listener engagement together, if you like. I love to hear people react to things that you've said or done on air. And I love that feeling of people being there and sort of joining you on the radio when they could be doing any other things in their day. But those that take time to listen to you, I think, is really nice. And I love it when you get a sort of regular audience as well, and they become your friend almost. But I also totally love the technical side and the behind the scenes stuff that people don't get to hear about very much, like music programming and production. I get to hear, you know, different elements of radio. I get to hear the jingles, I get to hear the sweepers and things, and I notice when things change. And I like to be involved with the general output of stations as well. So I'd say that those are my favorite parts of the job, the listener engagement and also the technical sides as well. I like a bit of the both, really.
Brilliant. We'll move on to question 4 because I know you're limited on time. How has COVID affected your life and line of work?
Great question, Ben, as well, because COVID has affected a lot of lives, as we know. And a while back, I decided to take a big break from radio, and it was just before the pandemic. And at the time, you know, we didn't know this thing was about. I worked in radio for 10 years. I always wanted to do something a bit different as well. So I thought, right, let's make a change. And I went to a new full-time job in a charity as well. But the thing is, I always wanted to keep radio with me because it's been with me from such a young age. So at the moment, I'm doing a mixture of the two, the radio stuff and the charity work. And I have to say COVID has affected both because I wanted to keep my radio work going. But unfortunately, with COVID, it was stopping me from going to different radio stations. You know, we weren't allowed to travel to anywhere, and doing it from home was a challenge because you had to have all the gear and everything else and the connections. So that was a real, you know, sort of challenging time because that was extra income then. The main job was sort of on hold for a bit as well because face-to-face work was out of the question. But now, following COVID, things are thankfully a bit better. I've got cover work that I've been doing. So I've been doing some at Gem recently. And, you know, I've been doing a lot from home too for TX1 and RB1 radio. And I've been helping them out as a small commercial station in Doncaster and Bassetlaw. So lots and lots of opportunities there now. But I have to say, at the time with COVID, it really did affect those sorts of things from happening because we weren't allowed to travel anywhere.
You know, when you get these new studios in Mexborough region, I have a feeling there'll be two studios, one for RB, one probably three, one for RB, one for TX, a recording studio and a spare studio.
Yes.
For
Yeah, there probably will be. I mean, I'm not really sure on the plans as such yet, but I know that there'll be some live studios coming from the local areas, that's for sure. And it's going to be really good to get those going. You know, it's what the area deserves, a good local station. And, you know, I wish them all the best with it as well.
It's probably a replacement for like your old tracks and
Yeah, it
Robber
is.
and
Yeah, and radio is ever evolving, and there's always a market for these stations if they're done right. And I can understand why some of the stations have been taken over, and you know, at the end of the day, they've got to make a profit, and you know, times have got to change. But with the reaction they're getting so far on TX1 radio and RB1 radio, and the connections in the local area, it's definitely starting to shine through. And I can see big things happening, you know, especially for these small scale DAB stations where there are listeners who feel like radio stations that have replaced these other ones are not as, you know, sort of in touch with what they are in their local life. Yeah, I think it's a massive thing.
yeah, as you say, it's good. Yeah. And my last question on the list: what advice would you give to young aspiring broadcasters who are starting out?
The advice I would say is never stop sending demos out of your work, because one day somebody somewhere, whether it be a program controller, managing director, whatever, they might find one of your old emails, moved into a folder somewhere, and then go, right, let's have a look through this list. Who can we contact? And they might contact you out of the blue. I've had it happen before. I've sent an email a year ago and they've replied a year later, you know. I'd always advise people to find their own style with radio and try not to copy somebody else's humor or style. It sometimes comes across as a bit fake and it doesn't sound like you. Also, don't be afraid to laugh and have fun with your voice. Radio doesn't have to be a script. People like real people. And it's like when you choose your friends, you want to be with somebody who's genuine and knows when to listen to you and, you know, sort of when to stop talking at the same time as well, which I know I can talk too long sometimes too. I'm guilty of that. But if you're wanting to gain experience to add to your CV, seriously, give the volunteering shifts a go. Online radio, community radio, it really does help build confidence and help you know what to do and give you audio to use for your demos.
Brilliant. Yeah. I'm currently working on a couple of demos for the different stations.
Oh, that'd be awesome, Ben. And, you know, I hope some of these come through for you as well. Just keep sending them out.
I don't want the deals to fall through.
This is it. Definitely.
I'm working on a watertight deal so it don't fall through at the 11th hour like my last two podcasts.
Well, my fingers are crossed for you, Ben. My fingers are crossed.
Because as I say, I got rejected by a couple of radio stations due to my autism. I'm not going to reveal their names, but because, you know, because I don't want to discredit any radio presenters and you may know them, sir.
Yeah, fair play. I understand that, Ben. That's absolutely fine.
And some of them have just blatantly ignored me, so I'm not going to discredit them because I have a lot of respect for them and I understand radio is quite stressful for them at the moment with the COVID pandemic. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a stressful time, that's for sure. And, you know, I would certainly I didn't turn down this interview because I thought it was a nice opportunity to have a chat with you, Ben. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Have you heard any of my other previous ones?
I have indeed. Yes, I heard the one with John McDonald, and I did have a listen to Stuart Nicholson's as well, but I need to have a look at some more.
Give Jonathan Gold's a listen.
I will do. I know Jonathan, so yeah, we went for a drink in Leeds, me and Jonathan, so I'll have a listen back to his.
He talks about why Galaxy can't survive in the current climate. If you'll get his
I'll
grasp.
have a listen. And it is interesting, you know, when he was saying, you know, I think certain radio stations can't survive in this current climate because of how things are at the moment. And commercial radio is changing, but I think it may do a full-scale loop on itself eventually. We're going to see a lot of new pop-up stations. Some of them will fail. We know that. You know, it's inevitable. But I think that some of them will really thrive because there is still that market out there for a decent station that plays a mixture of music, is in touch with the local listener, and gives you entertainment. So I think there's still markets for all of these types of stations, but some of them inevitably will fail.
One of your presenters who presents a certain show in the morning on TX1 was quite brutal on Bauer. I'm not going to reveal his name. He's quite an honest person, a good guy.
Fair play. And as I say, I won't be talking about any issues, you know, that they may have experienced, but you know, that's just the legal side of things there. But yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you've got to speak to a range of people there. Yeah,
and I'm not going to reveal his name because he's a lovely guy and you know him already and he works with you, so I'm not going to reveal his name. So yeah. Anyway, thank you. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening and watching. Thank you for joining us today, Phil.
You are welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Do join me again for another podcast. But for now, please give it up for Mr. Phil Ray. Thank you very much for watching and listening. This will be available on YouTube later on and available on Wix.com. Thank you very much for joining me. Do join me again soon. Thanks very much for joining me again. And that's a wrap.
That was my interview with Phil Ray. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it filled a gap in your time. And yeah, that's it from me uploading tonight. But yeah, I'll be back again very soon to upload some tomorrow. In fact, tomorrow evening at about 10 o'clock to upload some more videos, and hopefully Friday as well. So yeah, I'll be trying to upload one video at least on Saturday and Sunday, but I'm pushed for time at the moment. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and that's a wrap.